Welcome to my channel. This video is for a Patriotic Wreath. I'll be showing you a new fun technique with Deco mesh tubing and tinsel. If you haven't done so, please subscribe and don't forget to tap that bell for notifications on my uploads and live streams. So first I'm cutting and forming loops with this Deco mesh tubing. The first piece I started out with was about 12 inches long, and so I'm just using that as a guide. I'm going a little longer, a little shorter with other pieces. I'm not doing there's no rhyme or reason to it. I'm just making loops and cutting pieces that would be like your spikes or something for ribbons. So I just want a lot of loose pieces sticking up, so it kind of reminds you of like fireworks or something, just all these pieces going all different directions. And then I'm wrapping it with a chenille stem very tightly, and I have no set amount that I made. I just did it until it looked full enough for me. Now I'm going to attach it on top of the mesh, on top of one of the ruffles, and I do have a separate video for how I attached the mesh. I did woodland ruffles, and I will put a card on the video so you can go to that very easily if you want to watch that. So you see I've already attached one. I already did the tinsel on that one, and I will show you how to do that too. Here's another bow, but again I'm cutting pieces too. I'm not just making loops. I'm putting strips, or I don't know what you want to call them, but just like 12-inch long pieces. So I want loose ends like that on the tubing, and then I want loops as well. So I don't normally do that with a wreath, but I was thinking since it's patriotic and fireworks and stuff like that, it'll look like just like a fun explosion or something. So I'm attaching that on the opposite end of where I attached the last one. And now I'm going to do some more. You see sometimes with the Deco mesh tubing, it gets smashed like that. When you open up a package, you'll see pieces that are smashed in little sections, and you just can't prevent that. You just kind of have to deal with it, cut it off, or just kind of deal with it and just keep going. It's pretty common. Sometimes you'll open a package and there won't be any pieces like that. So you're pretty lucky if you get one of those. So don't get frustrated with that. Just deal with it and move on. You see on this one I'm making a whole lot of end pieces. I'm not doing loops. I'm just doing these straight pieces because I'm going to add tinsel to the end of them and really make them look like some fireworks. So again, I'm adding a silver metallic chenille stem, and then I'm attaching it on the opposite end of where the last one was. So I've got two of these and two of the loopy ones. Now here's how I'm going to make these little explosions. I'm taking a full chenille stem and I'm running it through the tubing very carefully. Just kind of have to keep sliding, and I want it all the way in there. I want the tubing to overlap on both sides. And if you watch my homecoming mom videos, you know I do this on homecoming moms too. I use this technique. And then I'm kind of folding them in half, but I'm leaving one a little bit longer than the other side. And I am doing 3 of these. So just very quickly show you there, all 3 of them. These are little silicone finger protectors when you're dealing with hot glue, because you got to be very careful at this next step. I got this wonderful tinsel from Walmart at Christmas time, and I know you can't buy it now, but maybe you can think about this next season and buy it for next year. Now this tinsel has wire in the center, and that's the kind of tinsel you want to use. Make sure it has a wire in the center. And I'm just lining that wire up into the tubing. You just kind of push it into the tubing a little bit and then wrap the rest of the tinsel around, and you just keep smashing it. And I'm not using a lot of hot glue. I know it looks like I'm probably putting a lot in there, but what I'm really doing, I squeeze a little bit in there and then I swirl it around so it's all in there. Just make sure you get that center into the tubing, and then wrap the tinsel all the way around the tubing and just smash it around, smash it down. And you see I have the red there that was really full. Now my silver is not as full. So I cut 4 inches on the blue and red, but I cut double that on the silver because the silver is much thinner. So you got to really think about what kind of tinsel you're using. It doesn't matter if it's thin like this, but you will want to cut it longer so it'll look fuller. And you see I'm just wrapping it around, and one little piece fell off. That's okay. And just start smashing it. But again, be very, very careful, especially if you don't have any finger protectors, because I burnt myself so many times doing this, so just please be careful when you're doing this. Just smash, smash, smash. You see how fun those are. Look at those. Now just taking a little piece of chenille stem and wrapping around there at the V of that tubing and using that to attach it to the wreath form. And I'm just going near that little grouping of tubing, the red tubing that I attached. I'm not attaching it on top of it. I'd have to use a longer piece of chenille stem if I wanted to do that, but I'm just going beside it. So I'm going on all different directions beside it and making sure that I'm wrapping the chenille stem around the wreath form, one of the wires of the wreath form, so it stays on. And the reason why I put chenille stems in the tubing is so I can bend them around and make them go where I want. You can just do the tinsel and the tubing by itself, but it would just flop around wherever it wanted to lay. So with the chenille stem inside the tubing, you can bend them whatever direction, plus it's going to make them sturdy. So I was able to, if I wanted to bend one way and bend one the other way, I was able to do that. And you see that one ended up being a little too long, so I was able to just kind of smash it down a little bit. So that's why you want the chenille stem. Now I'm going to attach these cable tie mounts to my sign, and I just use a little E6000 glue on them just to make sure that they hold up a lot longer. And you see it has that nice rope hanger on the top, so I just needed to attach two. And you can add some hot glue around the edges too for extra security if you need to. And just take a chenille stem and run it through there. It's just big enough to run a chenille stem through. And then I just wrap it around give it one good twist. And it just makes it so much easier to attach your signs. Now I'm going to attach it in the center, and I'm just finding a hole between the mesh. I'm not going over the mesh really, or you can go over the mesh if you need to, but try not to go try not to go through the mesh. You'll tear up your mesh. So try to find a hole in there that you can stick those chenille stems through, and then you want to wrap your chenille stems around at least one wire of the wreath form. That way the sign doesn't fall off, of course. Now I'm going to take a chenille stem and use that rope hanger, and just attach that to the wreath form as well, so that gives it one more place that the sign is secured to the wreath. Now if you wanted to, you could attach these tubing bows and explosions all the way around the wreath and make it just full of those. That would be fun too. I'm going to go ahead and add some bows as well to this. So it just depends on the look you're going for, but that would be really fun too. I actually thought about that, but it would depend on how much tubing you actually had. Now after you attach your sign, you're going to have to pull out some of the mesh. Just be careful about pulling out too much. Now here's my cute ribbon, the first bow I'm making. And I'm just making one layer bows, but I'm going to make 4 bows, and I'm using 2 different ribbons. So I'm doing 6-inch tail and 10-inch loops. And I just form my first loop, twist that ribbon. I'm just making sure my ribbons are all lined up perfectly. Make my next loop on the opposite side. So you're holding it between your thumb and fingers, so you're making a loop on your left side and then the right side of your thumb, and just going back and forth. And you always want to twist that ribbon before you make your next loop. And I'm going to make a total of 6 loops, so 3 loops on each side and 2 tails. So again, twist that ribbon. Ever since I've been making bows with this mat, my bows have been much more symmetrical. So it does help to measure them out, and if you don't have a mat, you could use a ruler, but I used to just kind of eyeball it. So see there, I've got 3 loops on each side and a tail, and I'm kind of making sure that I've got the loops going the right directions. Make sure I find the center of my bow, because it has happened to me before where I wrapped it around and then I missed one of the loops. So just make sure which loops are going to the left side and which ones are going to the right side before you wrap the center. And I used a 4-inch cable tie. You can just use a chenille stem. I like to use those because I can get it really tight in the center and then wrap a chenille stem to tie it on my wreath. And of course I'm going to cut a nice little V shape on both of the tails. You can just fold those under as well, or cut them at a slant. I'm using a red chenille stem. It's metallic. And just give that one good twist so it covers up that cable tie. So my bows are double secured there since I've got two things wrapped around the center. And these are just simple bows, but I think they're really pretty. Kind of a pinwheel bow. Now I'm going between the tubing explosions and bows. And I'm wrapping it over a ruffle. So right in the center of a ruffle. And then just wrap it around there really snug. If you go between your mesh, your bow is going to get sunk into the wreath and you're going to kind of lose it. So be careful of that. So I'm making another bow identical to the one I just made, same size and everything, same amount of loops, same amount of tails, and I'm attaching this one opposite end. So I went above the sign and below the sign. Now this is my next pattern, and identical bows, same size and everything, and these I'm going to attach on the sides of the sign. So I'm going to have a tubing bow or explosion, and then a bow, and then a tubing, and then a bow, and then a tubing and a bow. So just all the way around the wreath like that. And it's going to make it look nice and full and fun, and just give it some different textures. I really like this wreath, the way it turned out. I think it was different and fun. I hope you guys thought so too. So please comment and let me know about that. Make sure when you're done that you take all these chenille stems and you wrap them around your wreath form and make it look nice and neat. Plus it'll keep anybody from getting poked with those ends or getting a door scratched with them. And then when you're done, you'll have to kind of fix your loops because they'll get smashed. So just kind of curl those tails and then fluff up your loops and just make sure everything looks nice and neat. If my math is correct, I used 2 yards for each bow. So that means I used 4 yards for each ribbon. Thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate each and every one of you. Please comment, share, like. Be kind with your comments, be kind to others, and happy crafting, and thank you so much.